Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm excited to share this afternoon's presentation. Our guest host is attorney Seth Price, founding partner of Price Benowitz, and also the founder of BluShark Digital, a marketing firm specifically built out of the experiences of growing and scaling a law firm. Seth is on the line with us today, and before we get started, just to give you a little bit of background about why we're both here. Today's session came about from a conversation that he and I had, and really looking at the value that he brings and the expertise that he can provide from growing a firm from 1 to over 30 attorneys in a major U.S. market, the challenges that come with that, and how marketing has really been an integral part of that experience, so much so that out of some of the frustrations that he experienced growing the firm and trying different marketing avenues, BluShark Digital was born. So today I want everyone on the line to feel comfortable asking questions of Seth, of maybe a challenge that you have. We're going to talk about the difference between scaling from a 1 to 5 and a 5 to 30 person firm. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I've spent 12 years in the legal technology, marketing, and solo small firm space, both as a trainer, consultant, and advisor, as well as building products and services. You came upon this webinar through my website, LexTech Review. Thank you to everyone who follows us regularly. And we also have a review of BluShark Digital on the website, which I'll be sharing a link to at the end of today's presentation. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Attorney Seth Price is here with us today. He is the founding partner and the business backbone of Price Benowitz LLP. And then he is also founded and is the CEO of BluShark Digital LLC. As the managing partner of Price Benowitz, he oversees a team of 30 attorneys at his full service practice, which has offices in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and New York across various practice areas. Price Benowitz is a well-respected law firm with notable acclaim in criminal defense, personal injury, and medical malpractice. He is also an international experienced legal marketer. After helping launch uslaw.com in 1998, he went on to become known as one of the thought leaders in applying 21st century business development and marketing to law firms. He has been a frequent lecturer and moderator at some of the largest and most influential law conferences in the U.S., speaking on the new tools and strategies law firms can use to align their business development with changing consumer habits. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. Truly a pleasure, and really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we are going to kick off today's presentation with something that I think should be a foundation for any marketing conversation. And what I really want to drive at this afternoon is setting goals and what it's like to break through certain milestones. So if you can give a little bit of background on what attorneys should be looking at or what you went through personally, starting from the point of, just opening your firm to where you are today.
Great. It's one of the sort of talked about areas in finding a one-size-fits-all is very difficult. That's been my philosophy, which is, addressing not just what area of law you're in, but what area of law, the geography, and the competition, and figuring out what makes sense for you. So, at the very onset, the question of where to scale is something that comes up on different boards that I'm on very regularly. And I think the question is, when you have enough work that basically you can't do it yourself anymore, that's the obvious sort of like jumping off point. But like many things, and depending on how you want what role you want in your law firm, that it will depend on when and how you do that. I was particularly lucky because I partnered with somebody, a longtime college law school buddy, who loved the courtroom. And I made a decision. I liked the courtroom, but I really enjoyed building the business. When I was at a big law firm right out of law school, I loved what the clients were doing more than the substance of what I was doing. So what I found myself able to do was, by dividing and conquering, that's what we did. I was able to focus on the marketing and the management and the setting up of the firm while somebody else was actually doing the day-to-day legal. Now, for many people here, that's not an option, but I think that the same concept in dividing of one's time needs to be looked at. There's an amount of time that needs to be spent on making the phone ring and a certain amount of time that has to be spent actually doing the work. And when you find that you're successful enough at building the clients that you can allocate some additional resources and time to that side of your practice, that's sort of the piece where like, okay, if I bring in a junior person, that would allow me to still monetize the existing client base that I have, allow me to build the hours, take care of the client successfully, and then, you know, allow yourself to shift some of your resources and time to focusing on the business rather than working in the business.
Okay, great, thank you. And so what takeaways do you have for someone who, you know, has a limited marketing budget? And actually, I think what would help with this sound is I'm actually going to make a you presenter, if that's all right. All right, so the next is growth-focused marketing. And once you've set those goals of really where you want to be, we talked in our video, in our preview video, about the need to really align your marketing with how you want to grow because it's used to attract talent. And if you could just share your opinions on how marketing plays into the overall growth strategy from a talent recruitment, hiring, and training perspective, I think that would be really helpful for our audience.
Well, a lot of things going on there. I grew my firm through primarily digital marketing, search being first and foremost. So I was able to optimize websites to find consumers looking for our specific area of law. Answering the question we just had before we paused, which is what's your advice for somebody who's starting out? I would say figure out what you love. And if you love blogging, blog away. If you hate to write, don't. There are people who are making great inroads right now with video, Facebook Live. If you dig deep in any vertical, we saw it for a minute on Google Plus before that blew up. Now Google My Business, but if you find a vehicle, whether it be Facebook Live, whether it be blogging, whether it be SEO, if you love something, you're going to spend more time on it. So if it's just you and you have your sweat equity and that's all you have, figuring out, you're much more likely to do something. Somebody says, should I blog? And my first question is, do you love to write? And if there's a pause or somebody says, I'm not sure, then you're in a position where like, probably that's not what's right for you. For me, I loved and just, started going to the SEO Geek conferences on the West Coast and just fell in love with the idea of making sure that what I was doing was what Google wanted to see. And what today, for example, it's content and links. And if you love producing great quality content and getting authoritative links, then search optimization is great. If you're somebody who's a quant person and you love A/B testing things and you have enough money to put into paid search, great, because you can actually do a lot of damage if you pinpoint PPC, with great accuracy. So I'd say to somebody starting out, figure out what you love and what you're good at, but also be cognizant, I assume that 95% of the people on this call are in the B2C space. If you're in the B2B space, much of this, I don't want to say doesn't apply, but spending your time on LinkedIn is going to make you a lot more money than spending your time, in other forums. And so if you're able to figure out where your consumers are, which again, assuming we're business to consumer lawyers here, trying to attract clients, the question is, are you going to put your time and energy into something that's building an asset like search? Is it something where you want to build a following or a herd where you have your video following and people are coming to you regularly? And I think figuring out A, what you need, and B, what you enjoy doing, that combination is really valuable.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions to ask you because we've talked about this at length. So marketing types, and this is really where, I'm just going to kind of set this up a little bit. When I talk to a firm, there's typically, okay, well, we have somebody who's doing our social media and we have somebody who's blogging for us and we do a little bit with FindLaw, or maybe they're buying newsletter services from someone, and they're spending all this money in like piecemeal locations. And I'd really love for you to share with us like the different marketing types and what helped you scale your firm. And, I think this is one of the most critical parts of this conversation, because it's not just social media and blogging. There's an overall strategy in how all these different pieces play together. And at the end of the day, either the phone is ringing and clients are retaining, or they're not. And so can you kind of give us a breakdown of what you've seen to be the most effective and what maybe they should be straying away from?
Well, again, it's all situational specific. Speak for myself, where I'm attempting to go from, when I went from sort of small to medium to the larger side of medium. And what I would say is that I focused on search and paid search, meaning SEO and PPC. I realized that the lawyers that I was attracting as I scaled were not necessarily buying into, they were not bloggers, they were not video podcasters. They did not have a passion for or an aptitude for doing these different areas. Could I say you don't get a paycheck until you do this? Yes. I try everything, yes, but it was sort of round peg, square hole. So what I realized was if I wanted to scale, it was providing cases. If you provide cases and you have work, people are going to come work for you. You can afford to pay them, and you can continue to pay them more, because as you know, if you get a junior person, everybody's done this, and you get a junior person at a low dollar salary and you teach them something, they're going to move on unless you really keep that salary up. Very often now with millennials, even beyond what you think is a reasonable rate of increase. So one of the things that we've really focused on is, can we keep the phone ringing, and can we do it without leveraging the attorney's time and attention at the firm? So referrals, most people are going to find that if you're the principal of your firm, I wish that there was a magic wand I could put over associates or junior attorneys, I hate the word associates, to have them become great referral funnels. Could you get lucky? Yes, but that's the exception rather than the rule. What I have found, and same with social, the one person I had who became very, very proficient with Twitter ended up being stolen by a government agency because he was so ubiquitous in the inner circles that we lost him. So I guess what I've sort of focused on is, how do I make the phone ring? I've done it through search and to a lesser extent paid search, and that the great thing about that is it can be done for the most part, with limited exceptions, without the focus of the attorneys that are out there pounding the pavement to monetize the cases that come in. And that if you spend your time finding amazing attorneys, you find those rising stars, that 40 under 40 that's going to be with you for years, and that's, sort of exactly who the client wants, who you should be hiring, that person most likely is not going to come with the whole social media persona. And so what I've said is, hey, if I want to scale beyond myself, I've focused on getting the phone to ring through sources that don't rely upon the voice or persona of the attorneys we have working for us.
Great. Thank you. And just dovetailing on that, I know, some of these marketing, lessons learned that we put up on the site, come from your own personal experiences and were the driving factor in creating BluShark Digital. So if you could give just a couple pieces of advice on, dovetailing off that conversation on things that you should absolutely avoid, or what you see most commonly when you work with clients in your marketing firm, maybe that will help some people in the situations that they are currently facing.
Sure. So I'll give you an example. When we started, I doubled or tripled down on search. That was what I loved. That's what I was good at. That's what got us results. As I started BluShark, people come to me and say, hey, I love your services, but it's tough. I have a cheap guy who's $2,000 a month, but it's essentially expensive hosting. I know I'd love to do something, because I know that if I spent a little bit more, I could get more, but what do I do? And what I've found is there is no shortage of people who will take lawyers' money to do different tasks, ranging from social media to blogging to a number of different areas. And what I have found is that for the most part, and there are exceptions to everything, that the ROI is never tracked on these internal widgets or purchases. It makes you feel good to have a $7.95 blogging service or a $14.50 social media package. And what I have found is generally those dollars spent may make you feel good, and occasionally a case could stumble in through it. But for the most part, that is not what I have seen an effective use of resources, in that, the person would be better off with, if they have limited resources, a small PPC spend, or starting to build authority organically, starting to build a website that will be their foundation for years to come. And that if moving away from things that are easy to sell but hard to quantify, to me, that's the biggest sort of shift that I've seen people make to improve where they stand. And that, again, can social media make you money? Absolutely. But the thing about social media is Facebook's essentially a media company. It's not social media. If you want to be seen on your personal account and you write something compelling, your friends like it, it gets shared. But if you're a business, which is where most people are posting their law firm information, the share rate is like at 0 to 1% unless you do paid Facebook. So to hire somebody to do a social media package where they are not boosting it, and that the boost is not the majority of the spend, to me is crazy, because you're spending all this money to create a Facebook campaign that's going to be seen by almost nobody unless somebody happens to come to your Facebook page to see it. So looking at what are the different little expenses, it's almost like if you were like sort of going around the house and saying, hey, I have like 4 pay channels on my cable subscription that I don't really need. I'm watching, Netflix anyway. Where can I find little bits of money that are out there, accumulate them so that you can get a war chest to compete on what I see as the biggest playing field, which is search. For the most part, for many of the people in the B2C space, people are not going after they get arrested to Facebook to find a lawyer. If they're injured, is it possible they're going to check with their friends? Yes, but there's a huge portion of the population that is searching for what they want. And that if you can find yourself in that place and take away the resources that are being spent on some of these sort of interesting, sort of easy to buy and easy to justify smaller expenses, and instead have one primary focus, to me, that's a smarter way to use resources. Again, exceptions to every rule. There are people who would do really well at these different parts. If you love, certain elements of Twitter or Facebook, and you want to then boost your very interesting and compelling statements, God bless and go for it. I'm sure you'll make money. But in scaling, I've found that search and paid search have been the single most effective for us.
Great. And then next, moving into the scaling portion. Now that we've kind of got a handle around all of that marketing and what to do first and where to go and what to invest in, and the leads start coming in and conversions are happening, which we'll talk a little bit about metrics here in the management best practices section. But first, it's now, how do you go from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 to 20? And how do you attract that talent? What do you look for in hires? And we were talking just before the session about hiring, the recruitment, the training, and the retention. Because for so many of our audience, the one thing that I consistently hear from them is, I don't want to scale because my biggest fear is I'm going to have an associate come in, they're going to learn about the practice, and then they're going to go out and they're going to do it on their own. So there's a hesitation both there, but then also, as you've mentioned, being able to continue to feed that talent and be able to give them the confidence that they can put food on the table for their families. So when it comes to scaling and specifically hiring, what are your opinions or recommendations for our listeners?
Well, look, the first thing is great legal talent. That's, at the end of the day, if you have great talent, that's the sort of the cornerstone of what you need to do in order to make this work. Every time we've looked at somebody and we're like, not sure, it's come back to bite us. We really, if you can keep the level of talent up, and the great thing is, as we've built a brand, it's been easier and easier. When you start out, how do you get somebody in? Well, a couple things. One is, when you start, making sure, A, that you're getting people, they need to be aggressive enough that they can sign and help you get clients happy through the entire client process, but not so much that they're going to want to open the store next door. And you know what? It's going to happen. When I first started out, I heard these awful war stories of people picking up and opening up shop next door, and we've had it a couple times. It's going to happen, but if you don't try anything, you're never going to get anywhere. So I think the first thing is, you may not get the dream hire the first time you do it. Don't be stupid about it, but understand that you don't know what you need or how it's going to work, and that if you hire, great lawyers, the rest of it can be trained. You can help somebody figure out how to close. You can figure out how to incentivize somebody to make it less likely that they leave. But I think that for the most part, it's first make sure you have enough business so that you can afford to pay somebody. And there are different extremes. There's some people say don't hire extra help until you are about to collapse. And I think part of it depends on where you are in your life. If you're younger and you can take it all on your shoulders, great. But as you get older and you have a family, you want to see the kids, it may be that you're willing to sacrifice something on your end of your money a little bit sooner. Not looking at it as an annual salary, but looking at it as, can I afford this for a month or a quarter? Understanding that you need to pay it going forward, but you'll also know if it's a massive mistake, you're going to know it early. But assuming it's not a massive mistake and you have a good person, if you're on the upswing and you're doing it, we've been very creative. We have worked a lot on incentives so that I think this is a huge piece of our success, that we have allowed people to make money when we make money. We stroke some very large checks every month, and that those checks are endemic of the fact that people have been with us for a long time and that they've done a great job and they're part of the whole system. And that at the end of the day, if you can help somebody make more money with you than without you, that's the first factor. And the second is, if you're, for some people, that's going to be the only thing. And the second piece, because you're not, at some point, somebody's going to want to say, hey, I want my own name on the door. But if you're able to take away the stuff they hate, which is the HR, the admin, the finance part, the marketing part, if you're able to take cure cases and go, there are plenty of lawyers out there that are great, that would love to do cases, but that don't want to do all this other stuff. And I think, through interviewing, and nothing easy, a lot of trial and error, but the more that you can find people that love the law and want to practice it, and that is going to be not only the person who's more likely to stay longer, but it's also the person who's going to take care of your clients and give you that brand that you can then build around.
Great. And on that note, when we're talking about management best practices, and you clearly have, a mindset of an entrepreneur and have grown your firm being a CEO of a law firm as opposed to, treating it like a solo practice or something like that. Do you look for certain mindset qualities, or do you train that in the leaders of your different teams and the management of your different teams? And then the other question that I have for you is, how do metrics play into the overall management of your firm? I mean, talking about marketing and measuring where every single dollar is spent and whether that's generating cases, how do you bring those same requirements and same standards into the overall management of your firms, and how are your teams divided?
I'd say for mindset, a lot of it has to be done in the interviewing during the screening process. To quote John Morgan, you can't teach hungry, that comes into play, every single day. So that you need somebody who wants and desires. We have had that, for example, people who are interested in what we're doing that might have kids at home and want to dabble. We have not found a great mesh. We love it because on paper it would make sense. Somebody who has extra time, we would love to pay them for that time and let them, rise. But what we found is that for us, somebody who is focused and that they don't have a side hustle, they're not trying to do something else, where this is their main focus, has been really important to us. We've, through the interviewing process, worked on screening out who doesn't have that mindset. And that's much of it. I always say to interview candidates, it's a self-selecting process, that the person who ends up with us is somebody who wants it. And one of my favorite success stories was a guy who was an attorney for us. He had been sort of working, I think it was in the middle of a bad divorce. He had been working for a guy making $50,000 a year. The paychecks weren't generally clearing. He came to me and said, I get what you're doing. I want to be part of it, and hounded me until we gave him an offer. And he has turned out to be just a total rock star, making 5x what he was making before. And the check's clear, thankfully. But the thought is that if you find the people that have that desire, that's great. The caveat is the junior associate hire. And that is the toughest place, because when you're in that first to third year place, not all of that's in place yet. People are still figuring out their legal feet. You need somebody who you think you can mold and bring along, and that if you're able to figure out there who you think you can bring along, understanding, and again, we've been on both sides of this. If we can figure out, it's almost like a wave. If you can figure out when you need to incentivize more to keep that person, because there'll be this point I mentioned earlier in the talk where sometime at the end of the first year, both they're going to feel like they know more than what they know, and the outside world will see them as a trained lawyer. And even if it's not perfect, it's a heck of a lot better than they were 12 months ago. And I think there's that moment where again, I've missed it and thankfully gotten hopefully many more times right. But if you're able to keep the monetary incentive at that 12-month mark and at the 24-month mark, there's a moment where you say, wow, I got this great deal at $50,000, $60,000 in the B2C market. And then all of a sudden that person is no longer, it's almost like pledging if you went through the pledge process of fraternity or sorority. The person is now a full-fledged member. And that even though you don't look at them that way because you know they have a ton more to learn, you know you've been part of that sausage making, you know where they are in that learning curve. That to me, I think for retention purposes, has been one of the most challenging areas because while we don't think they're worth, let's say, a modest increase from where they started, the market does, and that has been the area where we've lost people.
Great. And, I think that that's really one of the areas where you bring such a tremendous amount of value to the firms that you work with on the marketing side is that not only are you steering them in the right direction as far as marketing is concerned, but you can also provide some of those metrics that they should be tracking, some of the reports that they should be measuring on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, when those things should be reviewed, and also kind of guide them as to who should be monitoring and managing those processes internally. So many times they see firms invest in marketing or in people, but then they don't appropriately set expectations up front. And I think if there's one thing that I can add to the conversation in this area is that period of time when you first make a hire or when you first start working with an employee, that expectation setting of what they need to be doing on a regular basis and where it impacts the business from a cash flow or a management or a success factors within, making it possible to hit all of those goals. You have a very finite amount of time when they first start with you or when you're really working with an employee to get them trained, to get them in that mindset and approach everything that they do in their job. And that translates so well to the clients that you work with, guiding them and providing them the material that they need to really make that happen. Note, we do, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
And so on that note, we do have time for Q&A, which I'm very excited. So we're going to open up the floor to questions. We've got quite a few people on the line, so feel free to type your questions into the chat pane, and I'll go ahead and send them over to Seth. We've got a couple coming in. So what would you suggest for a solo or two-person office, two-attorney firm, to be a starting marketing budget if they want to grow their practice, and this is a criminal law firm?
Again, part of it has to depend on where the market is. In LA, that answer is going to be very different than in a rural market. So first thing is understanding your market. Something that I have done with BluShark dealing with clients around the country is when people are in a market that is significant, not pretending that a starting out PI lawyer in Atlanta, for example, could compete with the Atlanta market, and that frankly leaving the main city in order to sort of build a marketing foundation may get you through the noise much faster. On the PI side, frankly, sometimes there are great cases that are not being fought for outside the main area. Criminal is an area near to dear in my heart. It's our largest practice area. I love marketing in it. I think that the thought is to, for me, if you're going to be in this game for a while, and you're like, I'm a criminal attorney, this is my plan for the foreseeable future, it's building a website with a foundation, because it's something that builds and grows with you. And so, one of the areas, while the criminal and DUI terms may be hyper competitive, I've seen people do remarkably well digging deep into a niche, for instance, domestic violence, or specific drugs or something along those lines, that when you start, so a specific number, ideally, I look at it like you have a decision. If you can get the right person to do this in-house with you and you understand search and content creation and authoritative links and all that stuff, getting a person in-house is an incredible asset that probably is going to cost you $40,000 a year plus benefits, et cetera. I would look at the marketing budget, assuming that you're not hiring a person. You're two guys sitting in a room. You're probably not bringing a third person in for a bunch of reasons. I would say that in a perfect world, $3,500 to $5,000 a month is something sort of the equivalent of a full-time marketing person with benefits would be my ideal for you. But I don't know where somebody is, and if that's like you're each taking home $50,000, and that's obviously not a good place to be. At the same time, that I think is a meaningful amount. The piece that I hate to see when I'm looking at potential clients for BluShark is people that are paying like $2,000 a month and getting absolutely nothing. And that's the frustration. There's a lot of people in the $500 to $2,000 range that are essentially selling expensive hosting. There are exceptions. There are a few. There's one player with a CMS who I really like, who for not that much money gives you a great platform to work off of. Fine. But as far as competing against other people in a semi-competitive to competitive market, the ability to put a real marketing budget behind it, I think that there's that jump. And that if you're not in that world, if you're spending $1,000, $1,500 a month, just to be careful, because stuff that sounds too good to be true often is. I know what it takes. Like I've done it for myself. Half the reason I started the agency was exactly what we just talked about on the legal side, which was every 2 years I'd hire a guy or girl who would work with me, and they'd learn a ton, and eventually they would spin off and go somewhere else. And I kind of got sick of it. This literally happened every 2 years for 8 years. And I found that if I could turn this into both an internal cost as well as a profit center, I'd be able to pay people real money, keep and retain talent, and it's a stability. So, for an exact number, very tough to tell. It's all over the place, but just be cautious of and going back to what we talked about before, buying that social media package. Oh, that's going to solve your problems. It's being wary of what you're buying, how it's being tracked, and is it giving you an ROI? And if it's not, it really needs to be looked at through a very heavy lens.
Okay. And follow-up question to that: what niches do you see as being a good fit or opportunity for growth in the next decade?
There are two ways to answer that, right? So like there's some people say, self-driving cars, that's going to be, wipe a ton of things out. It may. I don't know whether it'll be my kids or who's going to be affected by it. We've definitely seen, I'll give you examples in our markets, things that we've seen. DUIs have dramatically changed with the Uber and Lyft, advent. That taking a cab before was looked at as onerous, whereas Uber and Lyft is on everybody's phone. And I've seen that dramatically change the landscape. I've also seen the drug laws. We've seen in DC specifically gentrification combined with the quasi-legalization of marijuana, that you are left with not only less cases because all those marijuana cases have gone away, but the ability for the police to pull people over, stop people on the street. You basically eliminated a whole sector of policing, and that just means less arrests. So for our market, we've seen a combination of gentrification, marijuana laws. So to me, looking at two things: one, areas that are not disappearing as far as you know, and secondly, looking at the market to see who's doing it. Who else in your market? Doing a few Google searches to say, where is the competition? Because very often there are people doing a type of law, but they may not be marketing for it. The guys doing it have been around forever, and you're not getting those cases. If you're a third year, fourth year, fifth year criminal attorney, you're not beating out the referral machine of big firms to the favorite, longtime players. But what you could do is find, hey, these are areas that there isn't a lot of competition, and I'm able to get at a cost-effective rate, whether it's organically, whether it's PPC, whatever it is you decide to do, or blogging or whatever it is, but that you're able to dig deep in areas that in your market don't have the competition. So rather than saying, hey, this is the hot area, because that, sort of like looking for the magic silver bullet, that is not the way I go. I would look market specific as to where there may be a hole. And to me, that was us. We came to a market originally with criminal, and there just was nobody marketing in the criminal space. So we said, okay, we're going to take this. The big players with great lawyers in our space were completely referral based. And we were able to say, okay, this, we like this. We get it. We can meld great customer service, a great client intake group. We haven't talked about that at all, but that's a topic. It could be an entire topic for another hour. But the idea that when calls come in, so when clients come to us at BluShark, they're like, we want SEO, we want PPC, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, who's answering your phone? Oh, it goes to the receptionist. And you meet this receptionist, and you're just like, there's no way. Every phone call coming in is money. You could put a dollar figure on it, maybe as much as $100 a phone call at the end of the day. When these phone calls come in, they're gold. And if they're not treated as such, and they're not cultivated, you're not calling them back, it's lost. And I know there are a ton of people with a philosophy of drip campaigns. If you are two young, hungry lawyers, there's no reason that every person shouldn't get called back. At the moment you could afford it, having somebody to help you with that process. But I always told the people when we started having people assist us, not receptionists, but we call them client management team, but call them what you want. But I want to make sure that people are not getting just a phone call and that's it, but you're there for them. I always say that, look, on the criminal side, the woman who gets behind the wheel and drives drunk with her kid in the back seat and crashes into a tree didn't make a good decision. Those decisions don't become great decisions the next day. And the fact is that if you're there to follow up, not obnoxiously, but to make sure that that person likely is not taking the proactive stance. They know they have a court date coming. They know they need to do something, but very often the same bad decision that got them in the shape that they're in is forcing them to repeat those mistakes. That I'm a big proponent of making sure you're there for them, using the Seinfeld thing. You're there, you're there for them, and then you're just there. The idea is at some point they're going to decide they want you, and the first person who calls them at that moment is going to get their business. And to use John Morgan metaphors again, if you think of yourself as a plumbing company, almost more than a law firm, that the water heater in your basement has exploded, your significant other is screaming at you, how are you going to get it fixed? And the first person who can pick up the phone and say, yes, I can solve your problem at a cost-effective rate, that person's going to get the business. That's sort of the philosophy that we've pushed forward.
Excellent. We have another follow-up question to that is, so do you have an end game? And when is a lawyer best positioned to start thinking about retirement?
With three young kids at home, you may even see over my shoulder, that hasn't been something I've focused on. I'm, right now in the thick of it, looking at producing a great legal product at scale. It's a challenge. It hadn't been done in the B2C space in our market, and that I enjoy it. It drives me. So at some point that may become more of a factor. I mean, there are things behind the scenes that, thinking about and figuring out. But at this point, I love what I do every day. And, frankly, because I've removed myself from some of the day-to-day trauma, which is dealing with clients. I mean, there are clients that you love and that they hug you and you've made a major difference in your life. And there are people, as you know, that whatever you do, you can't keep happy. I've loved the operations and marketing side. And so for me, I don't know, my dad's 82 and he's still practicing law. I would love to still be doing this for years to come.
Great. And a bunch more just came through. Give me just one second. So Seth, can you give us 3 Moneyball marketing tips? And this is from Ryan.
Moneyball marketing tip. Well, I'd say the first is that what I actually call like a Moneyball tip, which is figuring out where lawyers are not. If you are in a significant saturated market, finding locations that people are not, or at least, let's say 3 people are not, so you can get yourself into the 3-pack. That to me is essential. This is not a secret, but that reviews are the current currency essential? If you're asleep at the wheel on that it's a real mistake. And then I'd say from a web point of view, looking at what you're doing and where the resources are being spent. We talked a little bit about all the different areas that you may be spending money that are not sort of as effective. To me, the combination of organic and paid, that is the penultimate ROI right now. If you can get organic, which is, again, if you're in LA, this is not going to be as applicable, but if you can get organic to pop in your local market, you can get returns that just don't exist on Google PPC. And again, there are returns on Google PPC, but Google is smarter than all of us. They've created the game. With every passing day, they are more and more the one-stop shop, so that anything you can do to put yourself, and this goes back to the first of those 3 points, put yourself in a market where you have the resources to effectively compete and to put those resources in a meaningful way rather than a bunch of different sort of feel-good packages. To me, that's the home run.
Okay. And who do you see as thought leaders in the space that our audience should follow?
I'm sorry, in which space?
Who do you see as thought leaders in the space that our audience should follow? I bifurcate it in two. I mean, there are people who I think are geniuses, like Tim Stanley at Justia. He's great. People like Conrad Sam do amazing blogs about what's going on. What I did is I moved personally, which is what brought me on my path to where I am. I stopped listening to the people that were spoon-feeding the information to me, because I loved it. For people who are like, I can't understand it, the question is, which horse are you going to bet on to do your legal marketing? But to me, I went outside of the legal sphere into the digital marketing space. And to me, it was basically the idea that if you could go straight to people who are sort of the thought leaders in that space, it allowed us to sort of build a presence and scale. I would say that the sort of good and bad news right now is that while the world is changing and things are always happening and there are tweaks, the basic fundamentals haven't changed that much. That we are essentially at a point where the idea of spammy overseas links are long gone. And so that the idea of what is needed is there are no secrets. The basic fundamentals are there. It's execution. And so what I have focused on, and what I'm a big proponent on, is execution of what you know. And so it's like blogging. Yes, that will make you money. If you sit down and you write an original blog every week in a vertical that has a potential following, and you build that following, you will make money. I have no doubt. Same with a Facebook Live. You get a channel which has hordes of lawyers following you, great. For me, what I saw was on the SEO side was that given that the rules are now known, and that frankly most even scammy marketing agencies know what to do, that part for the most part is known. It's a question of, will those resources be put in for you? And that's sort of what brought me to it. I didn't see anybody who was doing it the way I wanted it done, which is why I started my own. But really, if you can build original content every day, and you can get authoritative links coming in, and you can have somebody who, freelance, can make sure that they're optimizing the site so the load times are fast, and all those things, if you can figure all that stuff out, God bless, and you probably can compete without an outside person just pulling things from Search Engine Land and Moz and all these other great resources together. I think the issue that I've seen is, there's so many things we're trying to do. We're trying to scale the firm, bring people in, that the idea that there is somebody who is expert and loves it is paramount. And that once that's done, it's really a question of, what value are you getting? Is somebody actually building links for you every month? Are pages of content going up every month? And that, to me, is the greatest sort of dilemma for a law firm, and where monthly reports and the idea that there's interaction with the agency, looking at them as a partner, not as a vendor,
somebody who is part of your team, when you get to that point, that's sort of, that's money. And it's sort of what we've done internally. It's what I've done with the agency. And when we get those and we get a client who really does work collaboratively with you, that's when we've seen the greatest success for our clients.
Great. And last question of today's session, are you hiring?
We are always hiring. I mean, just to give you an idea, this takes a step back. I've made a life decision as far as part of on the digital side. What we have done is we've laid out what we need, and we know what we need for every client. If we're able to get X number of people creating links, creating content, that is going to do right by our clients, and the businesses will flourish, our business will grow. I finally, bit the bullet and hired a full-time recruiter, not just for the marketing company, but for the law firm, because it's about people. And when I started at BluShark, people said to me, hey, there's so much snake oil out there. How are you going to differentiate yourself? And I said, look, we're going to execute. And to me, I have like a sign in my home office, which is it's an HR play. If I can staff the right people to execute on what we know is best practices, we'll be successful. On the law firm side, I'd like to think of ourselves as sort of like this entrepreneurial incubator. We've had a number of people, one person listening to a podcast, rang me up from out of state and said, hey, I like what you're doing, and they joined our team, and they're now a member of the team. So what I've, the answer is yes. If we can make you more money with us than you can without us, we'd love to have you. And on the digital side, if you're sort of spinning your wheels and you're not getting what you think is right, I'd love to look at what you're doing and tell you. Sometimes we're like, hey, this agency is doing great. It's just going to take more time. Sadly, more often than not, we find people that haven't had links built, haven't had content built. And the good news is there's tons of opportunity. The problem with being at the top is you can only go down. So I love it when somebody has room to grow and improve, because as a digital agency, it makes it a lot of fun and a great ride.
And we have your contact information up here on the screen. I do just want to point out to everyone that you are, a very accessible person. You've been generous enough to share your time with us today, and we really, really appreciate that. But also your team, in just the small amount of interaction that I've had with them in person, are so generous and caring and willing to just hop on the phone and do a quick strategy call or marketing evaluation, or say hey, tell me what you're doing, or tell me what you're spending right now, and maybe this is a way that I would change a couple things. So I encourage everyone on this call to take advantage of that. We have Seth's contact information up on the screen now. I'll also be sending that out with a link to today's recording in an email that you'll receive within the next 24 hours. Keep an eye out for that information. But thank you, Seth, so much for sharing all of your insights and experiences and lessons that you've hard earned over the last few decades. So thank you so much for sharing today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, that concludes our session. You'll receive that email within the next 24 hours. And I do encourage you to take advantage of that courtesy marketing evaluation or strategy session from Seth and his team. This is Chelsea Lambert. You can reach me at the information here. I am always available to do the same strategies for both technology or marketing. And that concludes today's presentation. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you online again soon.